Hello fellas. Welcome back to Top 5 Choices. This is Haley from Top 5 Choices, and I hope you all are doing good. In today's video, I am gonna do a detailed review and pick the top 5 best phones under 40,000, 2022. After doing proper researches, we came to the conclusion that meets the best in terms of overall. Kindly leave a like if you find this helpful, and I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my channel and turn on post notifications if you haven't. We will be also providing affiliates link to purchase from Amazon. Kindly use it for best offers and purchase from anywhere in the world. We'll be back with more videos. The iPhone SE has exactly the same design and display as the iPhone 8 from 2017. Using this form factor and screen hardware allowed Apple to keep the cost of the device as low as it has, as it didn't need to invest in a whole new manufacturing process. It feels like the iPhone world has moved on in 3 years though. Now the 4.7-inch screen with the chunky bezels above and below feels like it belongs to the past. In that time, the flagship iPhone range has moved to an all-screen design. Barring a notch at the top, you're presented with barely any bezels, while with more premium aluminum inside, things have got a little weightier in recent years. One suspects that if Apple had rebooted the original iPhone SE shape, with the smaller 4-inch screen and clickable home button, the new iPhone SE 2020 features a haptic button that doesn't move, it would still have sold well. But the larger 4.7-inch LCD screen is more useful for today's apps, which make good use of the extended display. One thing that many will miss is the 3.5mm headphone jack. We've been lamenting its loss for many moons now, but as the original iPhone SE, or other cheaper phones that are 2 to 3 years old that you might be upgrading from, had this feature, we can see it might still cause consternation. The display on the iPhone SE 2020 might not be the most feature-rich, but it's fine. Given the target market this phone is aimed at, those who want a new iPhone, but don't want to spend a huge amount of money on one, there's not really an expectation of a fancy OLED display here. The Nord N205G feels more premium than it needs to be for a budget phone. While cheaper phones these days look better than they ever have, the Moto G9 series is a great example. This OnePlus handset still looks a cut above the Nord N205G's. Plastic back feels more like glass, with a frosted finish of the kind we'd expect to see on a pricier phone. The front display's bezel is pretty lean for a budget handset, while the punch hole isn't too big, and the plastic sides feel smooth, with an almost chromed metal feel. The N205G doesn't have an in-screen fingerprint sensor, but it does have the next best thing, an extra-large lock button on the right side that has a fingerprint scanner built in. It's pretty accurate and fast, too, with good placement close to where your thumb would naturally rest when holding the phone one-handed. The remaining design is fairly perfunctory, thin volume buttons on the left side, a SIM slot above it, and nothing at the top but a microphone. The bottom of the phone has a USB-C slot in the middle, speaker to the right, and a 3.5mm headphone jack on the left. The N205G packs a 6.49-inch IPS LCD display with full HD+ 2400 by 1080 pixel resolution. As previously mentioned, the bezels aren't too thick, giving the phone as sleek a look as could be expected for a budget device. The punch hole for the selfie camera is reasonably sized, and won't block much of the screen. The display is very serviceable, lacking a bit of sharpness, but otherwise handling media and games well for a budget phone. The 90Hz refresh rate is also a nice touch for a budget handset, providing a smoother browsing and gameplaying experience than the 60Hz refresh rate of displays on most low-cost phones. The display is specifically great for watching media, with apps that allow you to control the resolution. When we watched Netflix, for instance, the picture was fine but not terribly sharp, but when we set the screen to 1080p on YouTube, the display was able to show content in great clarity, especially brightly lit scenes. The Samsung Galaxy A52 5G is a tale of two phones, the outer and inner. Samsung wholly redesigned the A52 5G's skin compared to the outgoing A51, but it carried over many of the specs from the previous generation. This leads us to wonder if it's worth the upgrade or not. There's nothing subtle about the Galaxy A52 5G. It has fully adopted the design language seen on the Samsung Galaxy S21 and Note 20 series to complete the family picture. That means it has a straightforward look with a super chunky camera module on the rear. The resemblance to its flagship siblings is obvious when you compare the family members to one another. Moreover, everything about the phone is bigger than its predecessor. It's taller, thicker, and heavier. Not by much, mind you, but by enough to notice. One thing separates the A52 5G from its more expensive Galaxy S brethren: materials. Where the pricier models are metal and glass, the A52 5G's rear is made of polycarbonate. Both the mid-frame and the rear panel are made from plastics, and the front panel is covered in Gorilla Glass 5. It's worth pointing out that the rear plastics are more durable than glass, and you might be able to get away with using the phone without a case. Further, Samsung upgraded the Galaxy A52 5G with dust and water protection, thanks to the IP67 rating. That's a huge bonus over last year's phone. Despite the plastics, the matte materials are appealing and could be mistaken for glass from a distance. The overall feel of the phone is quite good. The remaining design elements are function over form, but that's not a bad thing. The power button and volume toggle are high on the right edge of the phone. While the buttons are easy to find and use, feedback borders on cheap. The combo SIM card/memory card tray is tucked into the top edge. It supports microSD cards up to 1 TB. Samsung kept the phone's left edge entirely free of design elements, but the bottom contains the USB-C port, headphone jack, and downward-firing speaker. Together with the earpiece, the phone produces stereo sound. For a $500 phone, I was hoping for slightly better. Music comes across as a bit thin, with high-frequency sounds prevailing over bass tones. It's fine if you're not overly discerning, but there are phones out there that sound better. Still, the A51 5G didn't have stereo speakers at all, so that's something. Motorola has kept the headphone jack, which is nice. I'm also glad to see a USB Type-C port here. The Aurora Gray color unit that I'm testing hides fingerprints well, so it's not too hard to maintain a pristine look. The rear fingerprint sensor doesn't miss a beat, but the unlocking process is a bit slow. Face recognition is much slower, and so I never ended up using it. I like the rear camera module design of the Moto G10 Power. It doesn't protrude too much, and you get a total of 4 sensors, which is not often seen at this price. On the other hand, the HD Plus display looks unmistakably low budget, with jagged edges visible on icons and slight color banding in some gradients in photos. Viewing angles aren't the best either. Initially, I did find the brightness to be inadequate, however this display is still very legible even under direct sunlight. The Moto G10 Power uses Qualcomm's Snapdragon 460 SoC, which is modestly powerful but certainly not the best in this segment. Realme's recent Narzo 30A has a MediaTek Helio G85, which offers more power at a lower price. However, Motorola does make up for this in a way by offering an official IP52 rating for water resistance and dual-band Wi-Fi. The Moto G10 Power does support plenty of satellite navigation systems and has all the basic sensors, although it's missing a compass. Google is pretty proud of the Pixel 5a display, calling it the biggest one ever on a bezel-less Pixel, which covers the Pixel 4a for 5G and 5. At 6.43 inches, the Full HD OLED screen on the Pixel 5a is vibrant and bright. It's not the most impressive panel we've ever seen, but it's very good all the same, especially at this price. One thing I really appreciate is how easily I can see what's on the display when I'm out in direct sunlight. When I was out wandering around to capture photos for this Pixel 5a review, I found myself surprised and impressed because I could see the photos I'd just taken. Normally, I have to find shade to see the photos clearly enough. Not so with the 5a, and not every phone that crosses my desk can claim that. Like the rest of the phone, the Pixel 5a's display gets the job done. Neither awful nor amazing, the screen is average in the best kind of way. One area that has definitely improved over the Pixel 4 is the viewing angles. With the 4a, you'd start to notice distortion pretty quickly when viewing the phone from an off angle. I ran into no such problem with the Pixel 5a. In fact, the display has fantastic viewing angles and little visible distortion until you get to closer to 180 degrees, as you do with most phones. Once you go with an OLED screen, it's hard to go back to LCDs on a phone. That comes down to how deep the blacks get, which lends itself to a sense of foreboding and dread in dark games like Limbo, or adding stark contrast to the harsh orange scenes in Blade Runner 2049. Even Genshin Impact with its anime-style graphics or Dead Cells pixel art look amazing on the Pixel 5a. The resolution is just crisp enough to make nature photos almost look like you're actually there, too. Even something as mundane as a YouTube video or sports clip looks great on this display. The biggest highlight with the Pixel 5a this year is the addition of the 16MP, 117-degree ultra-wide camera, which joins the primary 12.2MP shooter. Last year's Pixel 4a only had the single 12.2MP camera. Up front, the Pixel 5a's 8MP selfie cam sits nestled in the top left corner of the display in a hole punch cutout. The night modes differ greatly between the two phones, mostly because the iPhone SE doesn't have one. This remains a strange omission on Apple's part, but the Pixel 5a features Google's excellent night sight. You can see how well the 5a handled the smoker at night, producing a clear image with plenty of detail. The smoker is still visible in the iPhone SE's photo, but it's harder to see.